The scene does not begin with motion, but with stillness held under a weight that feels almost unbearable. The light falls sharply across the figures, cutting the darkness open rather than illuminating it, revealing flesh, fabric, and blood with a clarity that refuses to soften anything. A man's body twists violently across the canvas, his muscles tightening in a final surge of resistance. His back arches, his chest expands, his mouth opens in a cry that feels trapped somewhere between breath and terror. His eyes widen into something more than fear, shock, betrayal, the sudden realization that life has slipped out of his control. His hands grasp desperately at the air, reaching for something that is already gone. From his neck, bright streams of blood surge forward in sharp rhythm, staining the white cloth below and tracing the irreversible path of the blade. Beside him, a woman leans forward, her arms tense yet controlled, her grip unshaken. One hand clutches a fistful of his hair, pulling his head backward, exposing his throat to the edge that cuts through him. Her face remains composed, lips tightened, not with rage but with concentration, as though she has forced herself into a role she cannot turn away from. She does not recoil, she does not tremble. Her gaze is fixed not on the man's suffering, but on the motion of her own action, on the line where flesh opens and life drains away. The fabric of her dress gathers around her form, light resting on the curve of her arms and the rigidity of her posture, making her presence feel solid, grounded, unwavering. Behind her stands another woman, older, her skin drawn tight across bone, her expression sharpened by years rather than shock. She watches closely, leaning forward, her eyes narrow and expectant. There is no surprise in her gaze, no innocence, no hesitation. She waits, patient and vigilant, as if she understands that violence, once begun, must be seen through to the end. The wrinkles on her face mark time, but her posture holds a cold alertness, a readiness that suggests she has witnessed or endured too much to be shaken now. Darkness consumes everything beyond them. There is no landscape, no room, no world surrounding the act. Only void. Only shadow is swallowing the space where context should exist. The figures stand alone in a suspended instant, held between light and blackness, between breath and silence. The sharp contrast carves them out of reality, isolating the moment so completely that nothing else seems to exist but this act, this choice, this irreversible crossing of a line. Standing before the image, you feel the atmosphere thicken. The violence is not loud, it is not chaotic, it is deliberate. It unfolds with unsettling calm. There is no rush, no panic in the hands that guide the blade. Instead, there is the dreadful stillness of an act that has already been decided long before the body began to struggle. The terror does not come solely from the wound, nor from the expression of the man whose life is slipping away. It comes from the strange quietness of the one who inflicts it. You begin to feel the tension beneath her calm surface, the subtle tightening of her mouth, the slight recoil of her eyes, the way her shoulders remain tense even as her face seeks composure. It is as if she stands suspended between two selves, the one who acts and the one who must live with the act. The painting traps both sides within the same frozen instant. The man's agony erupts outward, but hers collapses inward, silent and restrained, buried beneath the discipline of purpose. The dread in the scene deepens the longer you remain inside it. There is no hint of triumph in her expression, no clear sense of justice or vengeance. The painting refuses the comfort of moral certainty. The act is neither celebrated nor condemned. It simply exists, held in brutal clarity, leaving you alone with its weight. You feel the discomfort of witnessing something too intimate, too violent, too final. Something meant to remain unseen, yet impossible to look away from. Then, only after the moment has consumed you, the truth of the image surfaces. This is Judith beheading Holofernes, and the hand that shaped this vision belonged to Caravaggio. The story comes from scripture, but here it has been stripped of distance and myth. Judith, a widow who enters the tent of a military leader who threatens her people, gains his trust, waits until he collapses into intoxicated vulnerability, and then kills him to save her city. Many artists before Caravaggio painted Judith as serene, elegant, untouched by the violence of her act, but Caravaggio refused such comfort. His world was not one of idealized virtue or sanitized morality. His own life was unruly, marked by exile, conflict, sudden eruptions of rage, and a constant tension between faith and guilt. Violence did not exist as an abstraction for him. It was a lived experience. In this painting, Judith does not appear heroic, nor does she appear cruel. She appears divided, suspended in a state beyond innocence, but not yet beyond feeling. Her eyes avoid the man's face as though looking at him might fracture the resolve holding her together. The expression she wears is not hatred but distance, the emotional separation necessary to carry the act through. Caravaggio places the viewer inside that fracture, between conviction and revulsion, between necessity and horror, between righteousness and blood. The older woman's presence intensifies the psychological pressure of the scene. She becomes a symbol of endurance, of survival shaped by hardship. Her expression carries no shock because, in her world, violence has never been extraordinary. It is another form of struggle, another form of decision, forced upon those who live close to danger. She is the witness who accepts what must happen, the guardian of harsh reality standing beside a younger figure who is still learning what it costs to cross such boundaries. Holofernes, once a figure of military power, is now reduced to helpless flesh. His authority disintegrates in an instant. His body twists not only from pain, but from disbelief, an ego shattered faster than his breath leaves him. His scream is silent in the painting, yet it echoes inwardly as you watch. His final gesture, a hand reaching outward, feels like the last movement of a man who realizes, too late, that control was an illusion. And through all of this, the light remains merciless. It exposes everything: sweat, tension, blood, fragility. The light does not redeem the moment, it reveals it. It does not belong to heaven or judgment, it belongs to reality. The painting leaves you suspended in that space, unable to decide which figure you fear more, the one dying or the one capable of killing with such unwavering restraint. And yet, the questions it awakens have only begun to surface. The longer the gaze lingers on the scene, the more the violence begins to feel less like an action and more like a psychological landscape. The figures are frozen in time, yet the mind keeps moving around them, circling the moment, searching for stability that never arrives. Judith's hands remain steady, but something in her face betrays the cost of that steadiness. Her eyes do not burn with certainty. They carry a quiet hesitation that has been pushed deep beneath duty. Her body performs the act, but her inner self stands slightly apart from it, like a witness trapped inside her own decision. That fracture, between action and emotion, becomes more unsettling than the blood itself. The painting does not invite you to stand on the side of righteousness or condemnation. It refuses allegiance. It forces you to confront the ambiguity of a world where survival requires violence, where morality bends beneath necessity, where heroism and cruelty share the same gesture. The atmosphere feels heavy, not because of what is happening, but because of what cannot be undone. The blade has already crossed the boundary between intention and consequence. Even if time were to stop now, the moment has already passed the point of no return. Caravaggio allows no escape through symbolism or distance. Judith is not an abstract embodiment of virtue. She is a person performing an act that divides her life in two, before and after. You can feel that division in the tension of her shoulders, in the inward look in her eyes, in the restrained discomfort pulling faintly at her lips. The old woman beside her becomes a shadow of what Judith may become, someone who has lived long enough to accept the world's brutality as functional, necessary, inevitable. She does not carry moral shock because she has already shed it long ago. Her presence suggests that even compassion erodes in the face of survival. The man beneath the blade no longer appears as a villain in that instant. Whatever power he once possessed has evaporated, leaving only the desperate vulnerability of a body facing extinction. The veins in his neck strain, his arms contract in frantic resistance, and his face contorts with a terror that feels painfully human. He is no longer a threat, nor a commander, nor a symbol. He is nothing but mortality collapsing into itself. And in that collapse, the painting exposes a truth most stories avoid. Power does not vanish with dignity. It breaks, it pleads, it writhes. The darkness surrounding the figures deepens this sense of exposure. The absence of setting forces the viewer into the space of the act itself. There is nowhere for the mind to retreat, no background to soften the moment or place it safely in another world. The scene becomes the entirety of existence for the duration of the gaze. You are not observing history. You are suspended inside a violent choice unfolding in the eternal present tense. Only after this psychological weight has settled does the painting reveal its deeper echo, not just as a biblical narrative, but as a fragment of Caravaggio's own inner world. His life was marked by conflict, exile, and constant instability. He lived on the edges of society, alternating between brilliance and danger, devotion and transgression. Violence followed him not as myth, but as consequence. The world he inhabited was one where faith and brutality coexisted without contradiction. In this painting, that contradiction does not resolve, it is merely exposed. Judith's calm restraint becomes a reflection of Caravaggio's understanding of human nature, that violence is not always born from rage. Sometimes it emerges from pressure, fear, survival, or cold necessity. The emotional distance in her face is not cruelty. It is the sealing away of feeling in order to do what must be done. That emotional suppression becomes the true source of unease. The painting suggests that the most frightening acts are not those performed in frenzy, but those committed in quiet determination. The moment begins to feel less like execution and more like transformation, not only for the man who is dying, but for the woman who is killing. The blade divides not just flesh, but identity. Judith will never again be who she was before this instant. The cost of survival leaves a mark not visible to the eye, but etched somewhere beneath the surface of her still expression. The painting holds that silent aftermath before it has happened, as if time itself pauses to recognize the weight of the psychological boundary being crossed. And yet, there is no suggestion of salvation in her choice, no assurance that her action will lead to freedom, safety, or redemption. The painting refuses to grant moral resolution. It portrays a world where courage and brutality intertwine, where justice does not erase suffering, where victory tastes of blood and silence. The viewers are left to confront the reality that some actions cannot be neatly placed into categories of good or evil. They exist in the space where necessity cuts through certainty. In the quiet intensity of the scene, the painting becomes a study of control. Who possesses it, who loses it, and what it costs to take it. The man's loss of control is absolute, but the woman's control is brittle, fragile, almost painful to hold. Her restraint is not strength in the heroic sense. It is a thin barrier between action and collapse. You sense that once the motion ends, the weight of what she has done will rush back into her body like breath returning after suffocation. The deeper symbolism begins to unfold in silence. Power collapses in the space of a single breath. Time crystallizes at the threshold between life and death. Guilt hovers like a shadow waiting to descend, not now, but later. When the blood has dried, when the body has fallen still, when purpose no longer shields conscience, desire and fear intertwine beneath the action, not in the romantic sense, but as the primal impulses that shape survival and resistance. Caravaggio paints not just a beheading, but the psychological cost of human cruelty, not in the victim alone, but in the one who delivers it. The emotional distance required to commit violence becomes its own form of suffering. The painting does not accuse, it does not praise. It holds the moment with a kind of relentless honesty, refusing to offer relief, refusing to reshape reality into something comforting. The longer you remain with the image, the more its silence begins to echo. The scream is not the loudest presence in the scene. The loudest presence is the quiet concentration in Judith's face, the stillness in her breath, the cold light resting across her skin. The horror lies not only in the violence unfolding, but in the knowledge that the world is capable of demanding such composure in the midst of brutality. There is no suggestion of what happens next. No emotional aftermath is shown. No grief, no triumph, no collapse. The painting ends with the moment still suspended, the blade mid-act, the life not yet fully extinguished, the psychological fracture not yet fully realized. The viewer is left at the threshold and never allowed to step beyond it. And that is where the unease settles most deeply. In the awareness that some actions do not end when they are finished. They continue to live inside the ones who commit them, echoing in silence long after the blood has dried, shaping identity in ways that cannot be undone. The painting remains frozen at that impossible edge, refusing closure, refusing conclusion, leaving the viewer trapped in the same suspended breath as the figures within it. The act does not resolve, the emotion does not release. The painting lingers, heavy and unyielding, holding you inside a moment that never truly ends. It leaves you with the quiet realization that sometimes the most terrifying part of violence is not the act itself, but the calmness required to carry it through, and the silence that follows when there is nothing left to do but live with what has been done.